Hey, did you know you can go to colinmullen.com in order to get art and art prints? This is why I set up the website, colinmullen.com. So hey everybody, this week I'm doing this painting of a skull. I decided, hey, you know what would be a good idea? Why not I do a skull for, Halloween? Because I was beating myself up at first. I was like, man, all I do is skulls. And then I was like, wait a minute, it's Halloween. I could do whatever I want. Now, am I recording this after Halloween? Yes. Am I posting this after Halloween? Yes. But do I care? No. I like skulls. I like painting skulls. But the question is, this week, someone asked, just for a general, description of how I see or describe my usage of color. So let's do that. For this piece, specifically, I will mention that the colors are intentionally ones that I don't use. I have this, the dry palette of several different colors of gouache, and, I can see which ones are getting used more than others, and black is almost out, and then, other colors like green and purple are not being touched very much at all because I don't really care for those colors. So I was like, you know what? Let's make a painting using those just to, be different, It's worth it to try and experiment every now and then. So in the end, I hate this, despite the fact that, the colors are, good contrast to each other, all that jazz. I still just don't really care for this painting. But hey, I tried something different. So when it comes to color and myself, when I'm painting, there's a lot of things that just end up being like mechanical stuff. Like I like to always paint white before I paint yellow because the yellow usually ends up being a very sheer color and it shows through. I haven't really quite learned or discovered how the green, for example, in this works. It seems like it's incredibly sheer as well. Usually brighter colors tend to be. Your colors like your ultramarines and stuff like that tend to be more opaque, and so there's the mechanical differences of just different colors, especially when it comes to hue versus pigment. Hue, for those of you that don't know, is basically just, it's sort of like the same thing as saying like contains real fruit, and it's like, yeah, which ones? And it's like, fruit. That's what a hue is. It's like contains real color. It's like, well, what color? And it's like, we put color in it. It's not like a good pigment. It's not the actual like ultramarine. It's not, ground down whatever, it's usually some ground down beetle or something, so it doesn't have the color fasting. So, there's some issues with just longevity and stuff like that. But they still hold for quite a while in most regular systems or most regular, occasions. The colors will stick around for a while. That's the difference between artist grade and not. Though also, that being said, when you start working with cadmiums, cadmium is a very heavy metal and is not good for you and is toxic. So cadmium hue is sometimes preferred in, setting where you're not trying to die. Obviously, just being careful about the substance that you're mixing with and all that. Like, just don't eat lead, don't eat cadmium, that kind of thing. But beyond the practicalities of just color, that some colors are lighter than others, some colors are darker than others, I have a extreme love for just vibrant contrast. Like, I want to see something that is black and I want to see something that is white in my painting. I want it to be stark and I want it to be very, very eye-catching. When it's not gonna be something that is like a natural scene, I want it to usually be sort of like sensory deprivation, where there's like less things to be able to interact with, and therefore you have to interact with the things that are there. I find that ends up creating like more impact, and like the overall image ends up being stronger as a result. It also just has a more like iconic, permanent look when it's two-tone for some reason. It feels very specific, and it feels very aggressive, and it feels like I'm able to focus what the viewer is seeing by deciding what colors they're allowed to interact with. I tend to stay towards the primary colors of red, blue, and yellow. I tend to shy away from tertiary colors like purple, green, orange. They just don't, they don't spark joy in me, or whatever the Marie Kondo you want to throw out there is. Orange, I have some bad associations with after being kicked out of, UT Texas for not being racist enough. And then purple, just me and purple don't jive together. And then green is an okay color, but it's not a creative color, I say jokingly. It's just not my jam. And so that leaves pretty much black, white, red, blue, green, or red, blue, yellow. And so what I try and do with that is I try and go for it's part of the reason that like Town of Nowhere looks the way it does, and part of the reason that I think I'm attracted to that aesthetic of just a very limited color palette with pops of color is because like it is, again, I've limited things down, so when you do see the sparks of color in it, it becomes very like, that is important, that is noticeable, that is a real thing. It's not just gray and black and white. You see something that is important and therefore it's highlighted. It was like a design decision when I made it, but also, kind of the way that I do things like artistically when I'm painting. I've talked about, like the mechanical stuff of, different color theory stuff in other videos. I had a video on color theory that I quote and reference back to quite often, but, obviously all the stuff that's in there, but, a lot of color for me, like I for the longest time did not use color. I did black and white, like ink drawings and stuff, and I think that a lot of my like love for that contrast comes from that, those old reprinted anatomical, like natural study kind of things. Those have a really good look. And then you've got like punk rock posters and stuff like that where they've been photocopied 100,000 times because they don't have the money to do the other thing. It just, that the language of that limited color palette speaks to me more, and like I don't have a way of describing why I like these colors without it sounding like I've been to art school. But because I have been to art school, I've been able to talk about it for 7 minutes and 30 seconds at this point. So there we are. But I legitimately do. It's weird because I don't actually like the color yellow all too much, but it features prominently in a lot of my work. Just because of how bright and vibrant it is. It provides a really strong contrast to the darker colors. I like to try and go with prismatic colors as well because, well, at least when I'm doing more abstract, less photorealistic work, I try and go for the stuff that has those prismatic colors that's like straight from the tube, straight from the pot. And that's because of a consistent and vibrant color. Again, it's about like getting the vibrancy of the color and having that be something that isn't dulled down by mixing colors. Like I will mix maybe a little bit of white or something in order to make it brighter or something, or a little bit of black. Yeah, I don't know as if this ramble makes a whole lot of sense, but for me, it does. And I think that it shows across a lot of my work. There was a question last time I was painting on stream, that was just yesterday. I don't know why I said last time. Anyway, they asked, like, well, why do you paint so many skulls? And, like, I guess I'm going to throw that in on the end here as well. Skulls for me are they're important, obviously. You need one. They are inherently very human skulls, right? There's not another animal that has a skull that's shaped like that. Even apes and chimpanzees and stuff have like a different head shape, but like generally speaking, like unless if you're really into forensics, you can't really tell who that person was just from like looking at the skull. It's just like humanity down to its essence, and it's so incredibly alien despite that, and it's just this thing that we all accept that is in our bodies, but it's just like, yeah, that's a skull, that's a head, that's a, that's where the brain is, that's where the thinking happens. And so it's like, here's this alien but human thing that reminds you of mortality and death and all that. And I think that there's something like really beautiful about everything that I just said in that. I don't know. As someone who's 37, about to be 38 in February, I didn't really expect to be alive for this long. Like, I kind of expected something would have happened to me at some point, and yet I'm still here. So, like, there's a lot to identify with as well. Just being like, you know, hey, just remember, like, memento mori, death comes. Death is a permanent thing you cannot escape, and it will happen at some point. So, like, you know, live your life, love those around you. Don't forget that, like, any day, any time, that could be the last time you see them. Because you never know what's gonna happen. Some weird crap happens every now and then, and we try and control so much of reality in order to make sure that it is safe. We put up guardrails at natural parks and stuff in order to make sure that people don't fall off cliffs, and yet, like, bad stuff still happens regardless of how much we try to avoid that stuff. And it's not to focus on the bad stuff, but to just say, like, look, you can't control it. You can't control everything despite wanting to. So, you know, make sure that you accept it and treat it with the love and respect that it deserves, the time that you have here. Anyway, I'm really glad that you decided to spend some of your day listening to me do my Sunday punk rock sermon over some art. Hopefully you enjoyed the skull. I need to thank some people on patreon.com/RevScarecrow. If you're, wanting to, you can. You don't have to, but if you want, you can donate $5 or more, and that will allow you to get your name in the credits, which is what these beautiful people did, starting with my mom and dad. I love you. Thank you, Wabfu. Thank you, Pixie Lux. Thank you, Trusty Patches. Thank you, Toefoundor. Thank you, Split. Thank you, Spaghetto. Thank you, Sophia Nope. Thank you, Skelecorgi. Thank you, Seraph. Thank you, Reverend Joe. Thank you, Pig Wrestler. Thank you, MP. Thank you, Mortis. Thank you, Michael Carr. Thank you, Lunar Ray. Thank you, Katie Valent. Thank you, Josepher. Thank you, Gabriel Bennett. Thank you, Freak Wannabe. Thank you, Egg. Thank you, Count Cannoli. Thank you, Chiptune Glitch. Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Aggie Wag. And thank you, Ads! Short, concise, a little bit of that, as opposed to this video, which is now 13 minutes. I don't know. Talk about how you guys use color, how you see color, what the importance of color is. I guess I could go on about color, but this video is already really long. The meaning and belief of color and its use in art is incredibly important too. Like, I mean, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this art thing? Tell me in the comments. And then how does your art represent that? Also tell me that in the comments. It's why we're doing this, right? Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.